Let's get local here. Michael Bennet and Darryl Glenn have their one and only televised debate this week, hosted by 9 News at the History Colorado Center. The debate was marked by third-party protesters disrupting the debate by banging on the windows of the building. David, I've seen a lot of different protests before a debate, from related campaigns to unrelated campaigns. Banging on the very windows of the building was a new one for me. From what you saw the debate or heard from it, what did you take away? Well,
that third party has a lot of communists and Marxists in it, so their quasi-violent tactics shouldn't be surprising. If you want to vote for neither Glenn nor Bennet, and you want to go for a third party that has some integrity and character and decency, Lily Tang-Williams is the Libertarian Party nominee. She is a refugee from communist China, and she knows what she thinks and says what she means, which in one respect puts her ahead of the two larger party nominees. Darryl Glenn still can't figure out Donald Trump's level of repentance. And wants to talk to Trump personally about it. That's a high level of naivete, let's say, if he genuinely can't tell from this and suggest he doesn't have much judgment about the obvious. The same thing can be said about Michael Bennet, who voted for that horrible Iran deal that is endangering everyone in the Middle East and is accelerating the path of a totalitarian Islamist tyranny towards offensive nuclear weapons, along with the ballistic missiles capable of delivering them far beyond Iran's borders, and is also funding terrorism right now, including the Houthi forces in Yemen that attacked the United States Navy recently. Michael Bennet also says he doesn't know, when Hillary says she wants open borders hemispherically, that he doesn't know what that means. Well, he ought to bring a dictionary, and open borders has a fairly clear meaning. So they're both, if they were the presidential candidates, it would be a blessing to this country. They're both far superior to the nominees on either side.
After all that, and still saying they would still be much better than the presidential nominees is a pretty telling statement. Eric, did we get anything out of this one televised debate besides a reminder that there is a Senate race?
No, I thought we had agreed at this table that we were killing this as a topic. It's a topic that keeps coming back. There is a Senate race in this state. It would be nice, Dominic, if you would tell the crew to quit banging on the doors, trying to get into the studio, and if you would tell David to sit down and quit lurking over us like Donald Trump, pacing around the debate. Semi-seriously here, there is not a race in this state. It is, even though Michael Bennet has been a very credible U.S. Senator, and he's been involved in many of the big issues in Washington, 6 years is a long Senate term, and if you're going to renew that term, you ought to have to face the people and engage in a vigorous discussion of what you've done and why you deserve another 6 years. He has not been forced to do that. You look at Nevada, there were going to be 2 states where Democratic incumbents were in jeopardy. One was Nevada, one was Colorado. In Nevada, the Republicans, what a shock, they actually nominated a U.S. congressman who seems, at least on paper, to have qualifications, who seems, unless Trump drags him down, to be leading those polls by a few points. In Colorado, they indulged their whimsy to whoever makes their conservative hearts go most pitter-patter, and nominated someone who is completely unelectable. This is a party in the course of 6 years that has nominated Dan Mays, and now 6 years later, Darryl Glenn. In between those, they nominated Cory Gardner for Senate, and look what happened. He won.
And he didn't face a primary.
They nominated Bob Beaupre for a governor's race. He lost, but came within a couple points of beating, of taking out a popular governor. If you nominate credible people, you're a credible political party. If you follow the path that Republicans in this state, who have much to figure out after this election, you're not a credible political party. You're a protest movement.
Penn, did you catch the debate? Did you learn anything from it that you didn't know already about the race?
I didn't catch it because I knew I wasn't going to learn anything. I know Michael Bennet and Darryl Glenn's been real clear by his campaign. He only cares about being a Christian conservative candidate, and one thing his candidacy will do is tell us how large that contingency is within the state, so the Republican Party can then figure out what they have to do to basically follow Eric's advice and nominate some candidates that actually have a prayer of getting elected statewide. It's unfortunate. I can't quite figure out the Darryl Glenn campaign. It's almost like they're afraid to win. They only want to talk about certain issues in front of certain people. And they haven't forced Michael Bennet to go and do numerous debates and account for his time in the U.S. Senate, which is what they ought to be doing, but they aren't. And the problem is Bennet is popular, Bennet is liked, and Bennet hasn't made any major political gaffes. He's not done a poor job. No one would contend that. So Eric's right. This race is over. It's been over. And it's just interesting that people are banging on windows and everything. They ought to find a way to put their message out in front of a broader cross-section of the electorate, and maybe rather than banging on windows, their candidate might be sitting in the room participating in the debate also.
Patty, banging on windows certainly probably didn't do a whole lot for future debates, the first floor of the History Colorado Center, perhaps maybe a little higher up in the building. Beyond that protest, what did you get from the debate?
Well, I think the banging on the windows was probably the most interesting thing we heard during that debate. You know, we have to remember that when Dan Mays did run, Tancredo was running, and he was allowed to participate in the debates. And they made those debates very, very interesting, and it wouldn't have hurt for this solo debate. You wish there were more with the Senate candidates, but why not allow some of these other people in? We don't have to play by the national rules. You could bring in some of these other third-party candidates who might actually challenge the incumbent, but Darryl Glenn seemed unable to do that. But I just think it's time to look at opening debates. We don't have to look at the National Republican Party and what they do anymore, because we don't know if it will exist after this election.